Hi, my name is Shady Atia, professor at Liège University in Belgium, and I'm going to talk today about usability testing. This is a first presentation. It will have a follow-up, Usability Testing II, and I advise you to watch both videos to have a better understanding. Well, this presentation, Usability Testing, is part of a wider series of presentation on qualitative research methods, and it is a follow-up of previous presentations, and it will have a follow-up presentation. And as you can see, the aim of this presentation is part of the qualitative research methods, where we previously talked about qualitative research, systematic review, content analysis, observation, in-depth interviews, focus groups, and we will have two presentations on usability testing. Keep into account that this is the side of qualitative. We will have future series on quantitative research methods. Usability can be also classified under quantitative method, but in this presentation we focus on qualitative usability testing. Well, as you know, qualitative research methods can have two types of sources. It can be sourcing, the source can be people that we extract input from, or from document. And in this case, when you do qualitative or usability testing, the source of your information is documents. It's not a desktop research, it is users or people-based research. Now, the audience of this presentation is mainly to guide researchers who are prototyping to user experience testing as part of research activity for a master's thesis or a PhD or research projects in general. And the goal is to introduce designers and researchers to user experience and usability testing from a research point of view, and how to provide practical advice on metrics to collect analysis, techniques to follow, and results validation techniques of usability testing. The structure of the presentation is mainly, I will explain what is usability testing and what is user experience in general, what are the user interaction paradigms, how to evaluate the purpose, what are the quantitative and qualitative methods for usability testing, who should be the evaluator in a usability testing experiment, what is the process, and finally some takeaway messages. Well, first of all, the key question, what is usability testing and what is user experience? Well, usability testing is a more specific and more narrow focused approach where we are looking at the effectiveness, efficiency, learnability, error prevention, or memorability of a certain interaction between human and the computer, or humans and the built environment, or a design, or a product, or an object. While user experience is looking to other aspects that are more related to the satisfaction, enjoyment, pleasure, fun, and value. And my presentation today is mainly focused on the usability aspect, where we are trying in an empirical way and evidence-based approach to focus on how effective is a product or a software or a design, and how it is efficient, learnable to use, with error prevention mechanism and memorability features. So when we talk about usability testing, it is simply a way to assess the quality and improve the design of new products, tools, applications, devices, softwares, or websites. Usability testing is very commonly used by computer scientists when they do website assessments, but also it can be used by designers, can be used by architects, by industrial designers, by product developers. So it is a systematic technique to assess the quality of a certain prototype, and it's mainly used during the development phase of the design, or during the early design phases of a certain product or prototype. The aim of usability testing is to improve the design of a product, improve the user experience overall with a product from the user point of view, and from the user's experience point of view. Now, what are the benefits of doing that? A lot of benefits of usability testing. We provide invaluable insights into the user's experience. Usability experience metrics can help compare the product with other products if we are looking to do benchmarking, and it can help pinpoint and focus the improvement efforts. And in this way, we can make sure that what we are designing or proposing is working. A very common example that we are witnessing in our daily life, our interaction as human beings in the built environment. Once we look at what the city planners or urban planners are planning for us and what we are doing as citizens of a city or a neighborhood, totally the user experience can reveal a difference between what was expected for the design and what was really used, or how was the place used in real experience. So it's very important to do usability testing to avoid this type of discrepancy. And I do not need to talk about the emerging or the existing history of problems that we create from a top-down design approach that does not take into account the user as a priority. So usability testing here is very beneficial to get the feedback early, and it's today considered as one of parts of the participatory design approaches to make sure that we will not have this discrepancy. Another way of discrepancy of usability testing is that usability testing can help you to design better products and better prototypes depending on the audience. In this case here, we have a grandma that does not have easy access to reading the text or to complex controls for your remote controller. So usability testing can summarize all the buttons into the most essential ones, and this is a common example for a benefit of usability testing. And if the product was designed from the beginning to cater to the needs and requirements of the user, it would be more successful, and it will avoid a lot of frustration and errors during the use. Now, there are different interaction paradigms between human beings and the built environment, or human beings with the computer in general. If we look at the history of physical, social, cognitive environments, we find that there is different interaction styles. The earliest interaction style was when we had the first emerging computers in the 80s and the 60s, the command line interfaces, where we had some computer professionalism. With cards, you communicate with a machine and you have a 0-1 coding system. This was the earliest interface way of interaction with computers. Then we had the evolution with the window icons, menus and pointers. This is the 90s, when we had the personal computing penetrating the market. And then we moved later with the internet through the networked computing, mobile computing. Today, in the year 2000, we reached the speech and language computing, and then we reached, after that, the implicit interfaces with ubiquitous computing, and finally the virtual computing and the gesture-based interfaces. So we do not know where this go with us, but definitely we are getting more into virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed realities, and this will bring us closer and closer in relation with computers and with interfaces, and also in the same time the built environment and where we are working and living and studying. So this is very important. Just to give you a simple example for a human computational interface, this is an example, a failing example of the passport control point, checkpoint in the airport in Brussels. Authorities bought, or the responsibles bought these units to make it easier for police officers, so that you can go with your passport and directly make your own registration to leave the country or get into the country. And the purpose of that was to make it easier as like any interface, and to reduce the workload of the police officers of doing it in a manual way. Unfortunately, the system failed, and after investing huge amount of money, it was abandoned. And there was a lot of complaint from the police syndicate, because they said the system actually was very costly from a time point of view. Machines were not working, people couldn't interact with them, resulting that sometimes a wife can pass with the passport with her husband. Her husband had a mustache, but the system didn't recognize it. So there were errors related to the accuracy, and there were errors related to the usability. Now, the only way to avoid these problems and avoid these commonly appearing issues of investment in systems or in infrastructure in cities or in towns or in buildings, or even buying a software that nobody is using, the only way to avoid that is to do usability testing. And this needs to be appropriately done to make sure two things: you understand the needs of the audience, and in the same time assess the effectiveness and efficiency of the proposed product in this case. There is also different solutions today that we are finding related to the human-computation interaction. The ubiquitous environments, where you have, for example, ubiquitous communicator. You can use it to have store information, route navigation, sightseeing information in the city. It is not dependent on a GPS system. It's not dependent on satellites. You can have it integrated with your mobile phone. You can go to neighboring areas for facility information, and you can have a usable underground mailing system. So these kind of applications are coming more and more, and we will see that we are moving between a virtual reality and a physical reality. And the more we are advancing, the more we will need support and assisted informed decision making features and applications that helps us to make better and more joyful experiences in our daily life. Virtual reality, most of you are aware about it, the immersion in 3D environments, interaction in 3D environment, stereoscopic goggles, the head tracking, the data gloves, haptic feedback. All these technologies are emerging, and they are used on wide scale and different software, games and so on. And they are not today only used indoors, they are used also outdoors, and they are part of the virtual reality experience. Augmented reality as an immersive experience is becoming more and more common and used, and you find it in education, you find it in museums, you find it in open museums. So it's becoming more and more common to use these applications and these software. And as you can see, the medical sector is very strongly advanced in using augmented reality solutions to test different vital signs related to patients and so on. And what we will go in the coming years will be a mix between a real world and a virtual world. And the more we go in this mix, the more we will need to test these solutions. We will need to test this application so that we as users do not suffer. And in the same time, we can validate researchers and inventors' solution from their quality point of view. So what we are living in a reality today, we are living in a reality of multi-touch screens, a reality of gestures-based applications, and speech recognition applications, if you are aware about Alexia and so on, and the different devices that we can use on a daily basis. Without doing usability testing and user experience evaluation for these kind of application, there will be no advancement, and they will not succeed in bringing better. So anybody who is developer, a prototype developer, software developer, or a researcher who is looking to come up with applications, solutions, suggestions for virtual reality based or human computational interaction based solution should always do usability testing and user experience evaluation. Now we need to know what is the evaluation purpose. Why do we need this evaluation? There is two types of goals that we can have when we do usability testing. Either we do formative usability or we do summative usability. Talking about formative usability, the purpose here is to guide the design process. The purpose is to take place as early as possible, happen iteratively, so we can repeat the usability tests, and with a limited number of users. This is if we are looking to do formative usability testing. If you are looking at summative usability testing, here you are looking to judge and evaluate different solutions and technology. That's very different from the formative. Here you are looking to make a final judgment. You are looking to have a good comparative studies for different products for the same function, and you are looking for larger number of users. And this is totally different approach. This should be quantitative, and this approach should be qualitative. And therefore, I'm talking today about the qualitative usability testing method. So I will focus mainly on the formative usability in this presentation and the following presentation. Maybe in the future, if there's a request from your side, we can make a lecture on summative usability testing, but in this sense, we are talking about experimental or observational based on statistical analysis and based on lab experiments. Now, if I want to test this gas stove from a formative usability testing or from a summative usability testing, what will be the difference? As you can see, this gas stove has a certain complexity. I need to recognize which of those buttons is associated with which of those stove units. So I have to read this sign and directly locate which one when I'm turning it on, and most probably I will have electricity to ignite the fire. Now, if I'm doing a formative usability testing, then most probably I'm doing the usability testing during the design of the stove. I will have a small sample, I am testing, I do trial and error, I check, I modify my design. The product is under development. But if I'm doing summative usability testing, then I'm not evaluating the design of the stove during the design development. No, I'm evaluating it as a final product, as an end product. In this case, for the summative usability, I need to buy a series of similar stoves from different companies, and I will expose it to a large number sample of people, and I will tell them to rank and test the different stoves. In this sense, I'm saying which one is the most usable friendly and which one is the least usable friendly. And based on that, I can make a summative usability. If you are familiar with the customer associations that help customers to assess products or assess certain products, simply you will find that summative usability is used. They want to, for example, test different cars. What is the best car in a certain category for the year 2022? You will get these cars, test them, make some test drives. This is called summative usability testing. A lot of television programs are based on that, the summative usability. I'm not talking about it today. I'm talking mainly on the formative usability. Now, before going into the qualitative aspect of the formative, I want to talk about the quantitative aspect of usability testing. How can we measure something from a quantitative point of view? We are looking at the attitude and behavior. Usability testing involves the entire interaction with a product or interface or design, as well as the thoughts, feelings, and perceptions. User experience metric must be observable and quantifiable, and usability testing is the ability of the user to use the product to carry out a task successfully. So these are the definitions. If you look at the classification made by Christian Roa, he is grouping the different usability testing under two types of usability: quantitative, indirect; qualitative, direct, with a focus on attitudinal or on behavioral. And it's up to you to figure out, are you more on this side of summative usability testing, or are you on this side of formative usability testing? Now, quantitative testing is mainly looking at indirect data gathering via instruments, surveys, controlled experimentation, most probably in lab settings. And as you can see, it is related, in this case, usability testing is done as part of laboratory or controlled experiment. So we are not here doing qualitative research methods. We are not focusing on that. This is an example for summative usability testing, where we are doing laboratory testing. We have the people inside here, you find them, we're observing them, we are putting in a lab setting. Or another example can be the psychophysiological measures. So I have sensors and virtual signs measurement devices that are monitoring instantly while the user is interacting with the software or application or with the built environment, for example. We can have face readers that are doing it in a detecting automated way. We can have eye tracking system, motion tracking systems. These are all quantitative usability testing techniques. And as you can see, again, this famous graph of Christoph Roa, very nice graph that summarizes the quantitative techniques: clickstream analysis, eye tracking, usability benchmarking, unmoderated usability, user experience studies, and so on. This is all on the summative quantitative, and this is all the formative qualitative: focus group, interviews, participatory design, diary, camera studies, customer feedback, desirability studies, card sorting, concept testing, ethnographic field studies, and so on. So you need to be aware that there is two types of usability testing. One is qualitative, one is quantitative, one is summative, one is formative, and each of them has its own limitation and advantages. Now, quantitative usability testing research is based on random sampling instead of representative users. You must have a strong control over variables and the inferential statistics instead of descriptive statistics. So here you are going to inferential statistics with correlation, probability calculations, rather than just descriptive on the anomalies or on the normal distribution and mean and median and so on. Now, you have an idea what is quantitative usability testing. Let's talk about qualitative usability testing methods. A different way and a different approach. Here we are talking about the qualitative approaches, direct data gathering. You have observations or probing on the behavior. You do interviews, you do focus group discussions, you do observations, you do surveys, video analysis. And as you can see, this is the realm of usability testing when you do it for formative purpose. Here I explained this before if it's summative, but now if you are doing it on a formative, we are more on a natural setting, you are doing more observation, you can involve ethnographic research, contextual inquiry, observations, surveys, and in general qualitative approaches, including focus group discussion. And the previous videos we talked about how to do that. So you can apply the methods that we explained in this series of qualitative research methods as part of your formative usability testing. And again, I need to cite the work of Christian Rohrer, one of the best, that is confirming what I said on participatory design, focus group discussions, interviews, and so on. And these are the techniques used for formative usability testing. Now, let me give you an example. This is the Brandenburg-Berlin airport. This airport is since the year 2000 not able to be running. Germany, as you know, after unification had 3 airports, and the federal authority and the city authority of Berlin wanted to have a modern state-of-the-art airport that will represent the capital of Germany, the Republic of Germany. They start working on the project, and at a certain moment, when you are building a big airport like that, you need to do usability testing. So they had simple, pure observations, and they wanted to see how will be people interacting in this airport as a test before giving the permission to open the project officially. They had pure observation, they did simple participant observation. 12,000 persons did here observations. Keep into account, I said before that qualitative usability testing is with small numbers. Here it was with 12,000, but they did not do statistical analysis. They just wanted to check if the airport is working, checking in, leaving your luggage, going from a counter to a counter, passing the security check, and then passing the passport check. And unfortunately, this observational method, with and without interaction, ended up that the project or that the airport was not granted the permission to operate because there were fatal mistakes in the use of the airport. So this is an example, real example, that usability testing can be used in reality in a built environment. Here we are not talking about human computational interaction, we are just talking about the design of the airport, how it's interacting with the users, and it was a problem, and it's not working till now. So here we are looking at experience sampling, and we are looking to understand and to analyze. Let me give you another example for usability testing. We can do surveys. We can use standardized surveys, and we ask people to have experience sampling using the system usability scale, for example, which I will explain in detail in the next video. And you can just ask people for feedback very fast, very rough, to know how far they are satisfied with their experience with an object, with a prototype, with a design, or with a computer software, for example. Another type of usability testing is the participatory design or the co-design approach. In this sense, I am using the interaction between the design team or the designer and the potential users to allow them to give feedback, to better understand and to co-create together the design that will be catering for the audience of the design. So this is also a very useful and very common usability testing approach, and it is part of the qualitative methods or the formative qualitative methods of usability testing, where we increase the engagement of the user and we allow them through different ways of feedback, rounds of workshops and focus group discussion to interact and tell what they want so that the design becomes more user-friendly. For sure, there is also different types of usability testing that are called prototyping. Even if I am a software developer and I'm developing an interface or a program, I do not need to ask people to join me while I'm developing the interface for usability. I can do paper-based prototype of my website. I can do digital or blank or videos or experience, and I can simply create a test for the participants to allow them to think loudly with me, and they can have a fake model of my product that I want to test regarding usability. So this is very commonly used, and participants here are asked about their reaction to a product, the service, concept, brand, or advertisement in a small group setting. And usually we have a setting of 6 to 10, and it has a lot of advantages because it can help us fast to inform the design decision making for the interface. We can also have focus group discussions without interaction, simply that we will ask participants to react about a product or a concept or a service or a design, again small groups, and it can be very useful to guide the construction of a subsequent attitudinal survey, for example. But in this case we cannot interact with the design, we are more reserved. So these are all types of usability testing can be used from a qualitative point of view, and the purpose is always to understand, to analyze and to work on these methods, and they are only effective methods to collect feedback while we are developing our prototype or our product and so on. Now, who should be the evaluator when we do usability testing? Who is the evaluating? So who is the evaluating? Who is evaluating? Evaluating what and how? You can have analytical expert-based approaches or empirical user-based approaches. Both different approaches are distinguished. The expert-based, somebody who is expert who will come and give you feedback. So you are testing cars, you get Formula 1 ex-drivers and you make them drive the car in racing track, for example. That's the expert-based usability. So the people that I'm seeking their feedback, they are already expert. This is a very high intensive type of usability testing. And I can have an empirical approach, which is the normal or simple user. I want to test the car, but not with ex-Formula champions. I would just try to profile a typical user of the car. The analytical simply is looking at expert, like I said, focus on causes of good or poor usability. You look at inspection-based approaches, interaction-centered. While the empirical approach, you are looking at users with a focus on evidence for good or poor usability and the positive or negative effects of attributes of products or user content. How can you do it? You do mainly usability testing, benchmark testing, discount methods, rapid, low cost use, and so on. So those are the two differences. But before you decide who will be users, if you are taking an expert or taking a simple user, this scheme is very interesting that shows you how to work on that. I need to cite here the author, the name is Martin van Mechelen, and Martin van Mechelen, it's written under, I'm sorry for that. He is talking about either the design partner or the informant or the tester or the user. And it's up to you to say who you want to use as a user for the testing. User for sure is the normal classical user, the basic one. Tester is somebody who is more experienced, and then you have the informant or the design partners. Always when you do usability testing, you need to define which type of evaluator you will use to get the feedback when you use your testing. Now, there is different types of usability testing. There is the moderated in person, there is the moderated remote, and there is the unmoderated remote. I always advise to use the moderated in person. Why? A moderated in-person usability tester is a facilitated. The facilitator will be located with the participant or in a group, and will be on hand to answer questions and respond to any feedback to get a genuine result. And the test will usually take place in a lab, or often unveils more than if you were having a participant undertake a task on their own. Keep into account here, you are with them, they are in a setting that you created, and you are asking them. But when you do moderated remote, you are off-site or you are away, and this is similar to the in-person, but the facilitator and the participant will be separate in separate locations, and testing will be carried out using screen sharing software. The facilitator watches the participant from a distance, how they are using the software, and identify any task flow or errors or issues. This is less recommended because the presence of the facilitator in the room with the participant brings more rigor and make them more abundant in their feedback, but it is still allowed. And finally, the third type of usability testing is the unmoderated remote. I totally do not recommend it. The administrator sets some tests for people in a number of locations to interact with the software or with the product or with the built environment. You can collate a lot of data quickly, and in many cases you will have a recording of the participant on screen. So here it's kind of self-automated, do-it-yourself, guys. I totally do not recommend it because the presence of the participant can clarify a lot of questions, interactions, to make sure that when the user or tester is providing their feedback, you have the best out of them. So this is the types of usability testing. The user types, when designing a product or service, you need to understand the ones who will use it, and user understanding is key in the designing of the stage. 3 aspects to understand. First of all, who are the users? What are their pain points? And what areas of the product, service, or design or prototype need attention? So this is the way to do it. Now let's talk about the process. Again, I'm citing Christian Rolla. Christian Rolla says that the research methods by phase in the product design process are based on understanding, conceiving, designing, developing, evaluating, and launching. If you decide to do usability testing that is formative, qualitative, most probably you're not going to do that here. You will do it early. You will do usability testing during the development of your prototype, during the development of your design. And from there, you take the feedback to optimize, and the goal is to understand user goals and tasks and improve and refine the design to reduce the execution risk. If you are doing usability testing that is summative, then you do it for evaluation mainly, and then you are looking for other aspects. So this is a very important slide to look at to establish your approach of usability testing from a theoretical point of view. Chronologically, when you do usability testing, you will target a product or an interface or a prototype or a design or a building or something, target a precise aspect of the task for this product, choose one or several potential users and ask them to perform a task. You will collect the data, making your observation of the person performing the task, and then you start analyzing and identifying the user pain points or issues. Here, for example, this is an extract of my PhD. I wanted to help or test the usability of an interface, a software interface, and I asked people to use the interface to design 3 different prototypes, and every time I was intervening with them and I was testing. So always I do testing, usability testing, and I moved from prototype 1, 2, 3 until I improved and refined my prototype, and I use the feedback from the usability testing to inform me as a software developer in this case. Now, what's the takeaway message from this presentation, because I am wrapping up now? First of all, qualitative usability testing is powerful to test a design, interface, prototype, design, ergonomic, aesthetic, graphical design. So please use it. Lab-based studies are too idealized, so you can do easier qualitative usability testing. The summative or the formal usability testing that are lab-based are very expensive, very clean, very idealized. So I advise to do qualitative usability testing because it's very powerful, it's effective, you can do it fastly, and it can help you. Usability testing is part of the user experience evaluation with focus on effectiveness and efficiency, and for sure also satisfaction. Qualitative methods are better studied or suited for guiding the design improvement process. So use them for that. It's not the purpose of a qualitative usability testing is just to judge the product. It's mainly to help developing the product, and that's a big difference. And for sure, quantitative methods are better suited for comparing products and performance benchmarking. So if you want to do benchmarking, comparing products, do not use the qualitative usability testing approaches. Use the quantitative usability testing approaches, which are lab-based or large sample observational with statistical analysis to analyze them. Now, this ends up my presentation of today. This was a presentation as part of the qualitative research methods. It will have a follow-up on usability testing 2. I thank you very much for your attention. This was the introduction to usability testing that is qualitative. I hope you will make benefit from this presentation, and I invite you to watch the following video on usability testing number 2. Thank you for your attention.